Hey, English 9 student. I'd like to give you guys some additional information about Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare, the time period, and that kind of thing, okay? Because this is a totally different world than the one we're living in right now, okay? So let me show you some pictures. Let me go over some facts, just some basic background information. You could certainly learn a lot more on your own if you want. If you're interested, a quick Google search will show you a ton of stuff, but let me just go over some basic stuff, okay? All right. Can anyone name this image? What could that be? Well, wait, you have a guess? Piece of candy if you got it right? Oh, yep, you got it. Nice job, Tiffany. This is William Shakespeare's childhood home in Stratford-upon-Avon in England. Who is that lovely lady? Yes! Well done, Rebecca. It is Queen Elizabeth I. She was the queen during William Shakespeare's life. Okay, that's when Romeo and Juliet, the play, was written and performed first. Okay, now what is this picture? And that picture, and the picture behind me. That's right. If you guessed the Globe Theatre, you are correct. This is a theater that is in London, England, and this is a theater that is where Romeo and Juliet was performed, where Shakespeare acted and had his plays performed. And as you can see, it's really cool. This would be a really fun place to catch a show. All right, moving on. Let's talk about the Globe Theater a little bit. William Shakespeare owned 10% of it. Pretty cool. So the better his plays did, the more money he would make. Okay. More people come into the show. Pretty cool. All right. How did the audience respond if they didn't like a play? They would get to throw things, especially rotten food, at the actors up on stage. So extra incentive to give your best performance and try to keep the play as entertaining as possible throughout the whole thing. So this helps explain why Romeo and Juliet, like many of Shakespeare's plays, has so much different elements going on. It has comedy, it has love, it has action, it has all kinds of stuff to try to keep the audience interested and try to keep them from throwing stuff up onto the stage. Another interesting fact is that the Globe Theater would fly a flag up on top. Okay, this would signify to the people in London what type of show is going to be performed that day. And there were three types. If it was a white flag, there was a comedy play coming up. If there was a black flag, it was a tragedy. And if there was a red flag, it was a history. Now, back then, you couldn't look up on your phone what time the show was. You couldn't watch a movie or a commercial to see what it was going to be about. You'd look up at that flag and you'd get a little idea about what you might see. All right. You can see up here, there's a trap door. Actually, I don't think you can see that, but pretty cool for this old theater. They would have a trap door so people could pop in or quickly go down, add a lot of high entertainment value. They did not have CGI back then. They did not have green screens. So they would use things like trap doors to have ghosts rise up from it or other creatures go down. Some other interesting facts. It would cost 1 penny to watch a show at the Globe Theater. As the people would go in, they'd put their penny in a box. The box would then get taken into an office and locked up. And that is why today, still, if you want to know how well a play is doing or a show or a movie, you look up the box office results because the box would go in the office with all the pennies. All right. Really, everyone would go to these shows, you guys. Really cool. It wasn't just the rich people, it wasn't just the poor people, wasn't men, wasn't women, it was truly everybody. Even the royalty would love going to these shows. Okay. So it was something that could bring everyone together. And again, if we're thinking about what people would do a long time ago for entertainment, this would be one of the number one things. They did not have TV, internet, movies, plays, music, that kind of thing were a big draw though. Okay. As we're reading this, you guys, you're going to find that a lot of the words we no longer use today or we use in a different way. It'll take some getting used to, but I'm confident that we'll be able to understand it. Talk like a pirate. Say I or a. If you want to say yes, uh, the word ho means hello. That's always good. That's always fun to say. Tis, twas, twixt, knave, rascal. A lot of these words are not used very often anymore, so it will take some getting used to. But if we're able to read and understand the context, or use No Fear Shakespeare to help us get the modern version, we will be able to understand this stuff. Okay? A little bit more about people back in Shakespeare's time period. He lived during what was known now as the Elizabethan period. Okay, now this is called this because Queen Elizabeth I was the Queen of England at this time. Sounds like a really cool woman in history. She was 25 years old when she was elected, not elected, when she came into power. Yeah, queens weren't elected; it was inherited from her family, and she was a very strong, independent woman, and she really loved the arts and she really supported them. So she loved plays. She would go to the plays. Her friends would go to the plays. People she liked. It helped make it all more popular. Okay, because she liked all the arts so much, this was a great time for a renaissance or a rebirth of sorts in England, and all of that stuff was very valued because she kind of led the way. Okay. Other interesting things about life in this time period, very much more so than today, they had a class system. So if you were born poor, it was going to be a lot harder than it is now to overcome that and to rise up. If your dad was a blacksmith, for example, it is very likely that you too would end up becoming a blacksmith and kind of stay at the same station you are at. Okay. Other interesting things is, of course, the life of William Shakespeare himself. All right. Now, this guy, he wrote this play that we're going to be reading. Okay. Some interesting factoids. None of these are particularly necessary to understand the story, but kind of cool. He was born on April 23rd. He was 52 years old when he died, which was just barely above the average lifespan for that time period. He got married to a woman named Anne Hathaway. They had 3 kids, Susanna, Hamnet, and Judith. We know a ton about his life. However, there is a brief period of 4 years where no one really knows. Even scholars who have been studying his life, they have no idea what he was doing. There's a lot of different theories, but ultimately these are called the lost years. Okay, his nickname is the Bard, and that means poet because he's such a great poet, and he's very famous for the fact that he wrote 37 plays and 154 sonnets. You'll know what a sonnet is because we wrote one earlier this year. He gets credited with over 3,000 words, or almost 3,000 words, in the Oxford Dictionary. This doesn't mean he invented all of them, but if it was the first time that it was recorded, a word that he would put into his play, he got the credit for it. Okay, so people would hear the words of the plays, they would go home using them, became more popular, that kind of thing. All right, so now let's get into talking about Romeo and Juliet. Okay, essentially what we need to know is that this is a tragedy. Okay, this is going to be a sad story, and I mean, be funny moments along the way, but it does have a sad ending. All right. Now, it's important that we know that this story takes place not in England, not in the Globe Theater, but instead it takes place in Mantua, Italy. Okay. Well, I kind of misspoke there a little bit. It takes place in Verona mostly. Okay. Either way, Italy. But Verona is our main setting. We do see Mantua, which is a neighboring town, for a little bit, mostly in Verona, though. Okay. Don't get tricked by my mistake there. Okay, it wasn't Shakespeare's original story. He was, in fact, inspired by a poem called The Tragical History of Romeo and Juliet. So, as you can see, remakes are nothing new today. We might get new Star Wars movies every few years, new superhero movies. You know, remakes have been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years, okay? Now, this is going to be a tragedy, like I mentioned. And one interesting fact is there are a lot of words here, so we can be proud of ourselves when we're done. There are there are exactly 25,948 words in this story. All right. Now, you're ready to read the story, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Just give me a little flavor, a little taste of what life would have been like, some extra facts, extra info, and let's read it. Let's go ahead. Let's do it. All right. Good luck. Enjoy the story. Thanks, guys.